Let's get this show on the road. All right, so today what I wanted to address was, of course, this situation with Kanye running for president. Of course, most of us just think it's a silly hoax, but it is running all the headlines today for some odd reason. Can't quite understand it except for both sides playing out their fantasy of getting rid of the other party. Uh, the left sees it as a former Trump supporter, uh, wearing a MAGA hat, maybe can chew into some of that appeal, another reality star, effectively to some degree. And of course, the right sees it as a potential split for the black vote. Don't know how it would split the black vote since he's, from what I heard, pointing out that Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. But there's not much you can go on, Mr. Slavery as a choice. So you're not going to win that. Black people and Kanye kind of went our separate ways a long time ago. He was very influential during Katrina and much after. Had a very compelling story, and then just we don't know what he's been doing for a good long while now. I guess people like his shoes or something like that. But as far as taking what he says is credible, it's been a long while. But that does bring me to folks like these here, which is the idea of black conservatism. I kind of started this series off with Candace Owens and what she was doing, but there seems to be an entire wave of black Republicans. And I want to address that idea because there's a lot of confusion, and I know everybody has not had the opportunity to put the whole story together. So I'm going to try to put some of the pieces together. And just like anybody on the internet, including me, take take the kernels of the ideas and run with them. If I say something, you don't have to take it as gospel. I'm some person on the internet. You go down that rabbit hole. Here's a tidbit of information. Maybe this is the first time you've heard it, and then you can follow it on down. The other night, I noticed that Sean Hannity gave us a history rundown about how the people who were holding up segregation were all Democrats. Yes. And then 68 happened. And Lyndon Johnson, going into that, signed the civil rights legislation, which cost the Democrats the Southern white vote. And from there, the parties flipped. So up until then, it was unimaginable that a black would vote for a Democrat because Republicans were party of Lincoln. After that, both parties had to reassert their coalition. And the Republicans went after that fringe white vote, and the Democrats were now consolidating the black vote. They were now the party of black civil rights. So Lincoln, Republicans, and kind of JFK, Johnson, Democrats. So 100 years apart, same issue, which is black people trying to get their freedom, but Republicans for Civil War, Democrats for civil rights. That's the split. And we're fighting for the right to vote and whatever else. And whoever's president in 2063, trying to help black people get their rights then, whatever party he's in, then we'll have 50 years of black people voting to get that guy to help lighten the yoke on us. So that's kind of that idea. And that's important because a lot of the premise that I hear from the black conservatives is, well, the Democrats haven't done anything for us. Okay, well, there's no group lining up to do anything for black people. So the Democrats bring, you're part of our coalition since the Republicans decided that their coalition, generically speaking, were people who didn't want these other good. So these are mainstream conservative whites. And blacks are basically over there with all the undesirable whites that they don't want, uh, gays, stuff like that, and you're just kind of lumped into that group. It doesn't matter that blacks are much more conservative than the white population. We have more church than everybody because that was the only time that we could congregate together through slavery and things like that. So this is what I think black conservatives confuse is that the black community is a conservative community. It's no longer a Republican community. So you can be a conservative Democrat. Many Republicans run and try to pull the white conservative Democratic vote or the liberal Republican wing. So Democrats will often go after that. This election will teeter on those groups who are fiscally conservative and socially liberal and things like that. So black people also fall into that of not being monolithic. But once you go over to the Republican Party, it's treated more as a betrayal because it's seen as a lack of understanding of the nuance. So much of it is, well, the Democrats passed a crime bill, and it is okay. And what does this old white man in Biden have to do with you if you're young, poor, and black? Okay. And poor whites are going to vote for Trump again. What does a real estate slumlord Democrat from New York who's been rich his whole life have to do with West Virginia coal miners? Nothing. He went there, he passed tax cuts, he did the Supreme Court, had nothing to do with their life. None whatsoever. His job was to do what each one of them does, which is feed, how to say it, it's the 1%. 1% is about, we could say 3.5 million. We have about 350 million people. It varies. Some people say as high as 370, some people say 320, but say 350. That'll give us 3.5, 4 million 1%ers. They're about capital gains, globalism, things like that. That doesn't turn the gears for the average person. What has to turn the gears for the average person are, like they say, pocketbook issues. They need a coalition to get their guy in to effectively move their policies. So you need to go get poor whites, you need to go get blacks, you need to go get somebody else to be able to broaden enough coalition to create enough votes. So then that's where abortion comes in. That's where the Second Amendment comes in. That's where support for Black Lives Matter comes in. That's where there there's shades of gray at the top, which have nothing to do with most of us. But that's not just something a trap black people are falling in. That's a trap 90% of the population that's voting is falling in. Hey, at least I'll get a couple of the things I want done out of it, or this person isn't totally against me. If we have a president that supports and gives an idea that police brutality is okay, that affects my daily life. For many other voters, if there's somebody saying, hey, I'm going to create a bunch of programs and that's going to double your taxes, people feel like that's personal. They didn't feel like capital gains or corporate taxes or anything like that was personal, but their personal belief in whether they have a right to an abortion or not, or whether it's legal or not, that's a way to get us unwashed masses uh, engaged to give a shit about something that's really not going to have anything to do with us dealing with some figurehead whose job it is to sell the oligarchy to us. So when you are a black conservative Republican, you've completely missed the boat on the nuance. You've bought into this traditional idea of exceptional Negro. I did it, so they can do it. I had it hard, so all those blacks back there can make it. That's stupid. It's stupid and it's wrong for you to go on the internet, TV, or anywhere else to say it. No other population sells themselves out the way black conservatives sell black people out. It is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Telling black people that there's no racism is like trying to teach someone how how to sail and not teaching them about the wind. I understand your point, and your point is to be spoken directly to black people, but not for the amusement of white people. White people don't get the nuance of what you're telling the black people, which is maybe a message of hope. Don't let these ideas and don't let these people tell you you can't make it, you can, and this, that, and other. I made it, you can make it, whatever else. They got out of that. It's not our fault. There's no racism. All they have to do is get up. And that is not a fact. There is nothing about that that is a fact. Because if it was just that way, then they wouldn't have made the laws. Stop buying into the idea that racism is something that black people came up with to make white people feel bad. That's not where it came from. They created race. They write it in all the laws. They write it in all the legislation. They did it. Racism is their thing. So stop cooning it up for them and trying to make it all right. I'm going to tell a black person, if it's twice as hard for you to get a job, then you need to apply it twice as many places. And then the white person standing behind me is going to go, yeah, that's right. And I'm going to say, shut the fuck up. You need to get off his goddamn neck so that he don't have to go to twice as many places. You didn't have to go to twice as many places, and this place is fair if he doesn't have to go to twice as many places. Now, I'm going to tell him, you can't sit at home and complain, because if you know about racism, then you know about racism. Right? So if you're just like, well, I'm not trying, it's racist out there. Motherfucker, you know it's racist. So the next answer that you're going to say to black people overburdened by it is, but what are you going to do about it? It's like if you're in a wheelchair, that's unfair, but what are you going to do about it? That is our message. If we halfway climb out of that, penalized, but the ghetto, by definition, is where a society holds a particular group of people. Period. That's ghetto, that's ghetto. That's ghetto is an indictment on the white structure of this country. It's not an indictment on the people who are suffering under it. It is an indictment of the structure of this country. That is the definition of the word ghetto. Look it up. That's how it works. So when they're down in the ghetto, that is somewhere due to redlining and poverty and access to credit and whatever else, where they have been put and held. And the police force are part of that border patrol, almost a domestic ICE, to make sure that they don't go any further than that. Have some of us went beyond that? Yeah. But I'm not going to tell them that it's not 10 times as hard. It is 10 times as hard. I'm going to say it's 10 times as hard and you still got to do it. And then a white person over my shoulder is going to say, yeah. And I'm going to say, shut the fuck up. Right. So you can be a black conservative. You can't be a black Republican unless you're going to do your goddamn job as a black Republican, which is be a voice for black people inside the Republican Party. If you're just over there telling them, yeah, racism doesn't exist, and yeah, you're right, I'm the good Negro, and I did pretty good, and I that's the reason I tell the blacks when I see them, nigga, you're cooning it up. You're cooning it up. They don't need you. We've had niggas doing that from second nigga got off the boat was pulling that shit. You know, it's like Samuel's character in Django Unchained. You know, where all your empathy is for the oppressor and all of that type of stuff. And so, oh, well, yeah, it is like reverse racism, and if black people stop, shut the fuck up with that bullshit. My hard luck story is harder than your hard luck story, and I would never tell black people racism isn't real. I guarantee you. I was born in the ghetto. I grew up an orphan. both of my parents are dead by 60. I got a hard luck story. I didn't leave it there to hold me back. But I don't buy into exceptional Negro that, oh, okay, I got out. So all of my family members and their family members and friends and whatever else, it's just that easy. They can snap their fingers. No, it's not. It is not. And you're lying to yourself, you're lying to them, and you're an embarrassment. Stop going on the internet, stop going on TV telling people that bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. There's no group. White people don't deny it. If we're not talking about racism, what are we talking about? We're talking about taxes. This country was founded for less than racism. They had to pay taxes. And they wrote papers called net slavery. They called that oppression. They fought a revolution for less than what we're going through right now. A revolution. They fought a civil war. And the white plantation owners were doing better than black people are doing right now. They have a higher threshold of what they call oppression. Black people are being held way down here, and we can't call it oppression. But for the Civil War, those people were living way up here and were willing to fight and die for just a little bit more or to hold on to that much. Same thing with the shipping class there that instigated the Revolutionary War. They had it. Oh, you're going to have to pay taxes. Oh, you made us your slaves. And went to war. All we're doing is freaking marching for access to freaking credit. You talk about cancel culture. Let's call cancel culture. Racism is cancel culture. It cancels out our lives. Mass incarceration is cancel culture. Dilapidated schooling is cancel culture. Poverty is cancel culture because it cancels your whole goddamn future. It cancels all your potential. That's cancel culture. And same thing for political correctness. Only thing new about political correctness is it affects white males now. There's always been political correctness. Who discovered America? Well, the politically correct answer is Christopher Columbus, even though he died thinking he had reached the other side of the goddamn world. It was politically correct to go ahead and leave those statues up because somebody wanted to call them their heritage. That was the political correctness of that time. We're in a different time. So it won't just be women and gays and blacks walking on eggshells about what they might say because a white male might lynch one of us or beat us or whatever else. They get to do some of the eggshells. We all get to say what offends us. It's a racist idea that you will decide what my sensitivities are. I don't need your opinion. You don't tell me if I'm experiencing racism. I tell you if I'm experiencing racism. You don't tell me my fucking experience. That's idiotic. I would never presume to tell somebody what they are or not going through. That is the stupidest, pretentious, privileged shit in the world. Well, it's not racism, it's a lot of class. Race is almost a goddamn class. Or a lot of the people in a race are shoved into a particular class. Also, if it was class, then as you can see with all of these rich black celebrities, they would escape it as soon as they escape the class. But the class does not make you immune. So there's some intersectionality for race and class, but class does not explain racism. So please, I don't want to spend a lot of time browbeating other black people, but the internet is getting filled with black people running out to take the blows to the head. It is the most twisted thing about this time is rural, middle-aged white women out in the streets with Black Lives Matter signs and black people lining up on the internet and the TV to castigate them. That's the time we live in. I'm going to wrap it up and go to bed. But as usual, fuck you. I don't need you to subscribe. Don't care about your comments. And I'm a grown ass man, so my life doesn't revolve around likes. I'm just some guy, and only I know what's best. Have a great evening.